We're going to go back to item 1A, presentation of the proposed Calcasieu Parish Police Jury Strategic Plan 2022 through 2024. Mr. Bean.
Thank you, Mr. President, and members of the jury. I am with my great pleasure tonight to present to you your completed strategic plan for the police jury for the period 2022 to 2024. The purpose tonight is to hit the highlights of what are the main elements of this plan. Also spend a little time on the process, which I think is important because you serve the public and they will want to hear the thoroughness of the plan and what your priorities are, reflect what they see is, and hopefully those are aligned. Before I get into the details, I do want to recognize our consulting partner in this effort, Emergent Method, company we've worked with for many years. In this particular instance, through our original plan back in 2018, and ever since, they've been great to work with. Y'all have met them. Rowdy Goday is here on their behalf tonight. I appreciate him being here. In addition, John Snow with the company and Taylor Sterling. So they will continue to be involved in the implementation, but they've helped us a great deal in forming this, and I just want to thank them for their work. So what is a strategic plan? It's very simple in one sense. The short answer is that it's the document that reflects the mission of the organization, in this case the police jury, and what are your highest priorities. And then all of the goals and objectives that go into the plan to accomplish those priorities. So if you don't have it, you have in this case a body of 15 elected members. You represent different districts. You have different backgrounds, but you have to come together as a body and agree in general on a handful of broad priorities that you say this is important for the next 3 years. So it's no small task, but it's an important one. So this is a big day. Let me go ahead and kick in this mission, vision, and values. This is not new. You passed these back in 2019, but it continues on. It's a lot of text there. I'm not going to read everything. I do want to remind everybody who certainly might be watching this from the public side, your mission here at the Police Jury Organization is to provide the people of Calcasieu Parish with high-quality services and actions that benefit present and future generations in this region. High-quality services is self-explanatory. But I love the fact that you put in your mission that what you're doing today is for the people today, but also those that are in the next generation and beyond. And it also goes for what your vision is to be the model parish in the state of Louisiana in many services. And I think we do that in a lot of ways. One I'll touch on a little later in the presentation is drainage. We had a fantastic presentation tonight on the latest on our drainage efforts, and I'll get into that later. Your core values at the bottom are important too. That says who we are, and the police jury emphasizes those. There's 4. The police jury has vision. The police jury is dependable. You collaborate and you emphasize and value financial stewardship. That continues. This is a new plan, same values. So that is a guiding set of statements, if you will, that lead into what we'll get into in details. A little bit of background here. You passed your first plan in January 19. You had a shared set of 6 strategic priorities. Some of those carried over into this one with a little fine tuning. We did add one on hurricane recovery. Best laid plans, you go through what's called a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Well, there was no Nostradamus that would have predicted in 2019 4 disasters, pandemic and what have you, and we didn't even include the latest tornado in there. So you got to roll with the punches. We still got a lot done out of this plan, but of course a lot of what we've been working on since early 2020 now is applicable to either the pandemic recovery or hurricane recovery. But we also have a lot of good new things, so it's a mixture of both. And back in, I guess, about May of 2021, in earnest, along with Emergent Method, we started the process to put together this updated plan you have in front of you. So it's about a 9-month process. And there's a reason it takes that long. You've got to do it right. And I'm just like to go through quickly the steps that were involved in coming to this point tonight where we're making this public. The first one, again, way back in May and June, you've got to get all sorts of input. One of the things that, I don't know if I'd call it lucky, but we had to do, as you'll recall, it was led by Alberto Galan, of course, on our staff, the Hurricane or Community Recovery Long-Term Disaster Recovery Plan. You passed that in August of 2021, a year from the month where Hurricane Laura hit. Well, a lot of the same input we got then applies to your strategic plan. So that was a very valuable document. It's being implemented now, just like this plan will be. And we got other plans that others are doing, like the Community Foundation. So we could build on that. We also, like we've done every year since 2018, conducted our own employee survey, engagement survey. This is really a welcome thing by the employees. They like being asked their opinions, and they give us their answers. It's mostly good, I'll say that, but they also challenge us to do better, and we're very proud of that input. You follow that up, and this is kind of all in sequence. We meet with each department leader, talk about that department's goals, how are we doing on our current goals, and so forth, and what do we see in the next 3 years. And then we had a full-day strategic planning retreat with those leaders. We have to take all of these ideas and start boiling them down into something more manageable. So that was the next step. After meeting with them individually, you meet with them as a group, and then we come in at the point where y'all came in and we introduced you to a lot of that and said, what we need from you, jurors, is to help us take all of that and narrow it down to a handful of priority areas. These are broad. The goals and the detail comes after, and you did that. You had a very good, if y'all recall, we had a good session on January 14th at the Seed Center that y'all helped us get there. So it's kind of a whittling down process. We have since then, in mid-January up through now, for the last basically 3 months, almost, taken all that and filled in all the details. There's 108 goals in this plan you have before you, but they all go back to the priorities you agreed to back in January and ever since. And here we are tonight, so we're presenting this plan in full, ready to go to you. We're not asking for approval tonight. We are going to ask you on your April 21st meeting to adopt the plan that will allow your departments to therefore implement it. So that's how we got here. One more slide on the process. I'm very proud of this. That survey I mentioned with employees, parish employees, we got 410 responses, 71%. That is an outstanding rate. We don't force them to do this. It's fully anonymous, but voluntarily to get that sort of percentage is outstanding. And on a scale of 1 to 5 on how they rated a lot of things, most were in the 4 or 4.1 range, and that made us feel good, but they also told us areas we could improve. And then 29 department leaders, many of whom are here tonight. I want to thank them in front of all of you for their hard work for their area. So how is this booklet, how is this document set up? As I mentioned, the key thing, and it's the main thing for tonight, I'll get to it in a minute, is 7 strategic priorities defined by you, the police jury, acting as the governing body. And they each have different parts of that which go into detail. I want to point out, woven throughout those 7 priorities are elements of hurricane recovery. We didn't have that 3 years ago in that plan. And we cannot, we don't, and y'all emphasize this, we don't want to just say it's an off to the side thing. So there is an actual strategic priority just for the recovery part, but know that all 7 of them have elements of that recovery in them. So let's go through those one at a time. Couple things that's very important in these 7. These are not ranked, okay? Number 1 and number 5 have the same value. We're just numbering them to be able to identify them. Secondly, some of these are what you might call carryovers from the other plan, but y'all either affirm that it's still important or you said yes, but it's a little different, so let's word it a little different. And then there's some new stuff in there. Number 1, develop a framework and processes to lead to more efficient CPPJ operations. I'll let you read the rest. I'll call this the bread and butter priority. This means in all of our operations, it's not vision for one thing or one project. It's saying that we, on a day-to-day basis, provide a lot of services people need, and we need to run those well. Animal services, mosquito control, juvenile justice, public works. We ought to be looking at best practices to be effective. What are the latest trends? That's what this is, and y'all said this should be a priority on our day-to-day operations, regardless of what our long-term vision is. Number two, create, facilitate, and prioritize strong quality of life measures in the parish so that people can call this place home for years to come. This is one of the key shifts, not that you didn't have it in your last plan, but y'all overwhelmingly in that session and talks individually, along with all the infrastructure, have said, look, for lack of a better phrase, we're kind of behind the 8 ball. If you get hit by 2 hurricanes and a pandemic and we're still recovering, you've got to sell others that we're still a good place to live, and if a business is here or wants to stay here, to invest. We have to do more than have the roads and the water, as important as those things are. We have to also know that it's something we've got to overcome because we've been hit so hard by these storms. So quality of life things are a big part of this plan. And it goes into more detail. One of them that I'll get to in a minute that I think fits under that is fighting litter, but that's got its own priority. Number 3, still got infrastructure in there. This is a core function of local governments everywhere. This means your roads and bridges, building them, maintaining them. Looking ahead, do we need new roads? Things we're doing now, whether it's Coach Williams Drive, Ham Reed Road Extension, Carlos Drive Extension. We've got all kinds of things like that we still need to do, and those are in this plan. It also includes things like waterworks, sewer, and drainage, especially drainage. As a matter of fact, you have drainage included in this one, but it's so important, you have a separate one just for drainage. And I think that's probably a good idea. It is such a key issue in the last several years and will continue to be as we grow. We have to get that right. I will say, if for those of you on the Drainage Committee, you know this because you were here at 4 o'clock. If you weren't, Alan and his team, along with Finstamaker, had a great presentation on where we are in the modeling efforts that are almost 100% complete, and this is after years of work. Those tools will be an enormous benefit to help you make decisions about what projects should work, may not work as you go forward, and we make strides in drainage. So I'm glad, and I know the public is glad you have this as one of your 7 priority focus areas. Number 5 is important too, but this is more along with what you would call standards and codes. You know, that sounds sort of technical. What does that mean? But we're a big parish. We're still growing. We got set back, but we're going to grow back. The population will come. There's going to be housing. It's going to take a while. You've got a parish where you've got a mix of residential areas, commercial areas, industrial areas. Those have to operate and exist together in a way that we operate as a community. That doesn't happen on its own. You've got to have good development codes, and you've got to keep them up. Y'all wanted to emphasize that. So as we look forward, you want to encourage economic development. You want to encourage subdivisions that don't flood and things like that. Well, you got to have good codes for that, and that's going to be a focus over the next 3 years. And to be honest, things like building codes and all. We're learning that whatever we thought the highest winds would hit here wasn't good enough. A lot of the improvements when we're doing the hurricane repair projects on our buildings, we're having to increase the ability of these roofs, for example, to handle, or buildings to handle 150 mile-an-hour winds when we had it at 130 and thought, that's never going to be hit. We were wrong. That's the kind of codes we're talking about. And this is one, I think probably 5 minutes in, 3 of y'all raised your hand and said, can we put litter in here? I don't mean to be funny. It's a very, frankly, disturbing trend that we've seen in this parish and the whole state. Even the governor has a task force. But litter's always been a challenge, but since the hurricanes, it is just elevated to a point where every one of you, and we all have eyes, it's it's a blight. And y'all want to say it's important enough to put in the big priorities and specific plans. We have a lot of programs, some good ones, but we've got to do more, and those values of collaboration are going to help because we need everybody in this. So reducing litter, and then don't overlook the other one, stormwater quality. If you think of drainage and stormwater systems, basins, if you will, there's two sides of a coin. There's the flood control and flood reduction. The other side is the quality of that same water that flows throughout drainage canals and our rivers. We have to be aware of both, work on both. The quality side we will continue to work on. That's going to take a long time, but we can't look away from that as well. So it's both parts of what you would call stormwater management. Last but not least in your priorities, as I mentioned earlier, is to have an item that says, let's continue disaster recovery efforts in Calcasieu Parish while prioritizing future resiliency. One example of this, and it's a big one, if you add up all of the grants that have now mostly been awarded, projects haven't been decided on, but we're getting there, whether it's HMGP money, American Rescue Plan money, funds, CDBG, you're talking about $200 million-ish of money that we now have to go out and invest in a lot of what you would call resiliency projects. This is a tremendous task. And so y'all said, look, let's have a specific item for that so that we don't let up and so we can make sure we're staying on track to carry all these out. Just to administer that amount of money is frankly pretty challenging. We'll do it, but it helps us to know that y'all have said this is important. We'll do the goals that fall underneath that. So again, we take all of those 7 priorities, and that was our marching orders at the department level. Go back, and they have, and we set levels of goals that get into great detail that says, okay, what does it mean to have a better quality of life? Or how do you reduce litter? Those are all defined in there. And I'm not going to read through each of these, but each priority and each goal, and there's 108 in this plan, has a lead department, support departments for that goal, and then there's a process for us in administration to meet with the departments regularly on the status, the progress, and this is over the 3-year period, and then regularly, periodically report back to you as the elected body, how are we doing? What do we need to do better? Who do we pat on the back for what we've done? So it's not, I know this is a cliche, but this isn't, y'all approve it, it's on the shelf, looks good, tell everybody we did a plan. No, you got to implement it. So that's what we're going to do next. This simply is just to show you how detailed this is for every department and every goal. There was a long list of details, and the matrix on the left tells you who the lead is. Any member of the public can view this plan. I'll go ahead and mention it now. It's our next steps. This will be on our website and Facebook tonight, and we encourage the public to read through it, let us know what you think, and understand what y'all, the police jury, are doing for your citizens. So I'll just go straight into that. That was my last slide, really, except for this next steps. CalcasieuParish.gov, there's a special page just for this, but it's easy to find. Again, it's on our social media sites as well. We're not seeking approval, asking you to do this tonight because it's just been presented, but we are going to ask you, as I said earlier, to take this action on your April 21st meeting. Remember, this is a living plan. I know that sounds a little silly. It does to me. I'm not a buzzword kind of guy, but you don't have to set this in stone. We plan to probably ask y'all to have a retreat once a year during this, and it's a check-in that says, how is it going? Do you need to change something? Has something happened that means we got to adjust our sails? Okay, that's fine. And the other thing to keep in mind, it is a hand-in-glove kind of thing with your budget. So this plan is your guide for your goals. This is who we are, what we're doing. The budget says, here's how we're going to pay for a lot of what's in here. So the two have to connect. So come in the fall, when the budgets are made, we're gonna be saying, what do we wanna do? Well, it's in the plan, and the budget will reflect it. Those aren't two things that don't work together. They have to work together. And then the last bullet is, in the administration, we have a steering committee just for this, but I can assure you, all departments, and it's about 30 people, have an assigned strategic plan person or persons in their department that we go to, so it's easy to understand who do we go to track all this. With that, that's a lot in a little bit of time, but this is officially public now and presented. And certainly, if there are any questions or comments, I'll certainly try to answer them, or anybody here from the departments.
Thank you, Mr. Beam. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Beam? Okay, I need a motion to receive report.
Move to receive report. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Barris and a second by Mr. Hayes. Is there any other discussion? Any objection? Hearing none. 1A carries.